Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. My fellow panelists had wonderful insights about the patent portfolio management. Let me start with the words I view. Portfolio management, whether it's IP portfolio or a project portfolio, it needs to be strategic. And if it's not strategic, there is no point of managing it. As one of the greatest business guru, Michael Porter, has said, it's about making choices. So sometimes when we are talking about portfolio management, choices are more to do with what not to do. So when we are talking about IP portfolio management, we need to answer a few strategic questions. And the strategic questions revolves around two basic things: where to compete and how to compete. Any organization, any business organization exists for value creation. And any value creation happens for a context. So when we are talking about where to compete, we need to understand the context in which organization is trying to create value or willing to create value. Any organization is based upon certain assumptions, and these assumptions are about market, about customers, about competitions, and these assumptions are very dynamic in nature. These are ever changing. So when we are deciding where to compete, we need to understand what are those assumptions. And these assumptions would change over a period of time. And hence, we need to figure out what are the value creating options for a particular organization. The question comes, how to identify these areas? How to identify the assumptions which are relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow, or which were relevant yesterday are not relevant today. And hence, it's very important to understand the key areas where we have to develop the strategic IP portfolio. Why most of the organizations go wrong? The logical explanation would be given that they make wrong assumptions. The data analysis is wrong. So it's very important to understand at what saturation a particular technology is. Just to give an example on, say, S-curve analysis, if a company is trying to create an IP portfolio, they need to understand at what stage that particular technology is. There is no point of acquiring a portfolio when technology on S-curve has already achieved the maturity stage. But suppose it's in growth stage, or it's just in a conceptualization stage, there is a strategic focus where companies can focus on technology scouting, see where is the potential meat for organization to build upon and leverage the potential strategic business areas. At the same time, it needs to be complemented with the research and the business strategy. Many organizations are content with the jurisdiction they are playing with, or the product and services they are playing with. Accordingly, they need to decide upon what kind of strategy they want to play with, whether it's about the diversification, whether it's about the product development, whether it's about the market penetration, whether it's about the market development. Once this is figured out, the IP portfolio needs to be aligned as per the business objective of the organization. And many times, small opportunity can result into big benches. That's about where to compete. It's very important to understand how to compete. And the framework revolves around three basic things. That's a value proposition. What value proposition IP is creating for the organization and also for the organization. And for the customers also. What are the assets and the competency that you can leverage? And of course, it would revolve around the functional strategy and programs that my fellow panelists talked about: patent audits, foreign filing strategy, when to abandon, when to acquire, technology scouting. Well, I won't be able to cover many of these things, but I will focus on a few of the key strategic aspects on how to compete. When we talk about value creation or the value proposition, most of the time we always revolve around the exclusivity. Of course, that is something, the primary objective of IP. But in today's fast evolving technology landscape, claiming exclusivity just based upon 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 patents is just rare. It may happen in pharmaceutics, but in other space, the hotspots of technology are well spread over world. So it's very important to understand what could be the other options that IP can help us in creating the value. Of course, licensing is one option. When we are talking about licensing, gone are the days when people used to exchange IP for money. As far as I see my industry or the manufacturing industry, people want to exchange IP for IP. You bring something on the table, then only I will give you something. Or you get into a joint venture mode, where I'll give you the IP, you put up the setup, you bear the capital cost, which may not be a good value proposition for the organization who's putting into the capital costs or the financial aspects into the joint venture. At the same time, today's world is about open innovation. It's about the collaboration. And strategic alliances, the successful strategic alliances can also only be formed when you have something in your kitty to offer to the prospective partners also. So we need to think from the holistic angle that IP not just for creating exclusivity in particular market segment, but it can open many other doors for you. I come from a manufacturing industry and suppliers have a huge role to play. IP can be a big bargainer there to control the bargaining power of suppliers. There are many practical case studies which we can elaborate on. Now, when we are talking about value creation, of course, there are different models, and most of you would be familiar about these models, starting from defensive to cost center to profit center, integrated, and of course, the supreme one is the visionary one. I just would like to focus on the integrated model, that how it works and how it can help organizations to integrate the R&D strategy with business strategy and the IP strategy. Most of the companies just remain focused on just doing R&D, coming up with invention and filing it. Portfolio management, the next step where we start thinking about that, no, we need to start leveraging it. And this needs to be re-looked upon. As I discussed earlier, the business assumptions keep on changing. And that's how you need to see whether the IP that I have today is aligned with my existing product portfolio or not. And that's how you need to audit your patent portfolio in line with your business products, business offering. And then next comes the stage of value extraction, where you start looking at the licensing option, you start looking for the spin-off options, and there's an advanced stage for that. You just not create IP yourself, but you also look for the potential IPs which are existing outside the space. That's what we say, tech scouting, the open innovation, and you see some small startup, some small university or the big IITs coming up with some good invention. You keep on watching that and try to integrate that with existing portfolio. And based upon that, the strategic options of developing yourself or acquiring from particular company, those kind of a strategic business option can be taken out. And of course, this business cycle, the R&D cycle, the IP creation cycle can continue. There's a new concept, what we call as a smile curve. Of course, this was given by the founder of Acer, but now this is very much applicable in manufacturing industries also. The most of the company believe that the value creation, so here this side, this is the value that a particular stage is adding, and this is about the value chain component from conceptualization to the marketing. The companies always believe that the maximum value creation happens during the conceptualization stage or the R&D stage. But this concept further got revised that you need to keep on adding the innovation, you need to keep on innovating even during the marketing stage or the manufacturing stage. There's a lot of potential where companies can add while the regular products getting manufactured in terms of new services, new products, revitalizing your brand, and of course, the IP plays an important role there. How you are developing your services around a particular product, how you are protecting those services, how you are developing your know-hows, SOPs. Now, how to look forward to keep on enriching your product portfolio. And when I'm talking about product portfolio, of course, that needs to be further extended to the IP portfolio. So I go back to very basics, what we call as the Levitt model of products. There is some basic thing that you develop some particular invention, and that particular invention solves some particular problem. That's what we call as the core product or the service. And there is something that people will start expecting when something is there in the market. People will talk about convenience. Like when we had the keyboard phone, people started expecting it needs to be more convenient. So what is expected today, tomorrow it might become core. Now nobody expects a mobile manufacturer to provide us with a keyboard phone. And something augmented. There's another stage where people are seeing further and further, and there is something potential. When we are talking about developing strategic IP portfolio, we need to start looking at these angles. What could be the augmented features? What could be the potential products for the future tomorrow? We need to develop the IP strategy accordingly. This also gives rise to developing the R&D project portfolio, because of course your IP has to come from R&D or the technological intervention. So how that needs to be integrated, that needs to be looked upon from this particular model. Now, of course, the topic that was there, that it's beyond patents. Lakshika talked about software industry where technology keep on changing very fast. I come from steel industry, where even a concept gets filed or an invention gets filed today, it would take on average 10 to 15 years, even we are very fast, to commercialize that particular technology. So what to do with the patents? Maybe when we commercialize, we are hardly left with 2-3 years, or 4 years, or maximum 5 years. And hence it's very important that when we file patents also, we also give utmost focus on the know-how part, the trade secret part. The complexity increases as we take a particular concept from the invention or the patent to development, to validation, to pilot plant, and the commercialization. And that's how this slides wonderfully explains, when potential complexity increases, the scope of know-how creation, the trade secret creation becomes huge and huge. So company need to have proper strategy in place, specifically in the manufacturing industry, process industry, that how you are creating your portfolio around that particular aspect. Thomas talked about mid strategy, long strategy. I'm putting in different perspective. Of course, that was more pertinent from pharmaceutical industry angle. But the IP portfolio needs to be balanced. We need to talk about what customer is also asking. The customer needs are very, very prompt. They need to be delivered. And hence, you need to focus on that we develop portfolio around what customer is wanting tomorrow. And of course, there are few things which are driven by the market as a whole. So the strategic IP portfolio also needs to target something which market would be expecting, say, 2 years, 3 years down the line. And there's another very important aspect which would help organizations to create differentiation. You create the demand. You get into the blue ocean. Rather than competing in the red ocean where everyone is targeting for the same kind of product, same services, you create portfolios, you create IPs where there's nobody else. And that's what we call as a technology driven. Of course, this is risky, but the ROI is also huge. So when we are talking about developing strategic IP portfolio, we need to be balanced in all these three. We can't do away with customer driven and the market driven. At the same time, technology driven